Jim, you online? Okay. Well, Alderperson Perella. Alderperson Salazar. She's not online? Okay. Alderperson Savaglio.
Present.
Okay. Alderperson Bourne. Yep, there he is. Can you hear us, Jim? Jim?
He's frozen.
He's frozen.
Looking very stoic.
Okay. Is he on?
Do we have a quorum?
We have a quorum without him if we have to. But I'm sure Jim would like to be on it. He's here. Is it good?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we got you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we hear you, Jim. All right.
All right, good.
Okay, we'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. We'll start out with 2.1, approval of minutes from April 13th.
Second.
Motion's been made by Grazia, seconded by Marcus. Any other discussion on those minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye. The minutes are approved. Item for discussion is 3.1, RO number 8-21-22, document 3.2, submitting the request to disinter Mickey Carey, who was interred at Wildwood Cemetery, Lot 215, Section 18, Grave 2, and relocate his remains in the Wildwood Cemetery to Lot 215, Section 18, Grave 1, that is owned by his spouse, Mary Carey. Director Buell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what this is before you this evening, and these are very rare cases. I would have to say, I think in my tenure, this has only maybe happened a handful of times. However, what has happened is as the information is described, is that when the person was buried in the lot, it was located in the lot next to the vacant spot, and it actually has to be shifted over so it matches with the stone and the inscription. So the reason it's before you is by ordinance, we're not allowed to make a correction without the committee's approval. So I just want to let you know, typically in fact, I'll be honest, and thanks to Thomas and his forthright and do research here, is he's the one who pointed this out to us. So what we're asking for is that basically you allow this correction to be occurred. And I'm going to defer to the Assistant City Attorney, Thomas Cameron, to correct maybe the action, because this really doesn't have to go to Common Council. This can just be handled at the committee. So I just maybe allow Thomas to explain the verbiage for the proper motion to make this correction.
Okay, go ahead, Thomas.
Thank you. So this actually is an item which can be done at the committee level. Normally, items are referred back to council for final action, but the way the ordinance is set up, this one is done at the committee level. So if the desire is to allow for the disinterment and the reinterment, our recommended motion would be a motion to approve disinterment and to allow disinterment to occur prior to October 1, 2021. And the purpose for that second piece is as the code is written, normally disinterment can only happen between October 1 and December 15th, unless there's special permission of the Public Works Committee. So by rolling that into that single motion, that allows the disinterment to happen as quickly as possible.
Okay.
I would make that motion.
Second.
There's been motion by Markets, second by Grazia.
I have a couple questions.
Sure, go right ahead.
So, why do we need to approve this? Like, is there a reason in the statutes that this has to exist, or it feels to me like this is something that if there was a mistake made, you guys should be able to just fix it without coming to us.
I would agree, but by the ordinance, the way it's written today, that this is the proper procedure for this type of correction and disinterment to occur. It's a practice typically, I mean, we do get requests for people to be disinterred and moved to other cemeteries, and it's a pretty disruptive process, so we don't take it lightly. So there was probably a process, that's why it had to come to this committee and just inform you of it. But as well, I'm going to also defer to Thomas on this, and he maybe can further explain some of the background on it.
Yeah, and when Director Biebel was saying there've been, a handful of these, he's referring to the sort of the more traditional disinterment of someone was buried here and you've decided to move them to an entirely different cemetery, or there's some, more distinct movement going on here. What happened here, to even call it the exception that proves the rule is maybe going, too far. There isn't a process for, adjusting that staff level mistake. So we're dealing with it just like we would any other disinterment.
Thank you. I've got a follow-up to that, if
go ahead.
How was this mistake made, and what are we doing to make sure that we're not moving stuff around again?
Correct. Well, we've put in some pretty good procedures. We have actual forms to be signed off by the funeral home as well as staff. And I can inform you that the person that took this order and expedited is no longer with our staff as we move forward.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion on this?
I have just one more question.
Go ahead, Grazia.
So the Mrs. Carey has to approve, right? The spouse has to
Yeah,
approve.
the spouse is actually requesting that this be corrected. Yes, correct.
you. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. That is approved. 3.2, General Ordinance 21-22, Document 6.1, an ordinance removing the one-way street designation for South 14th Street between Georgia Avenue and Broadway Avenue. Ryan, is that yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
This ordinance relates directly to the Oscar development, which is the development of 240 apartment units at the former Vandervaart site. Back in 2019, when the developer came to the Department of Public Works proposing this project, the first thing we asked the developer to do, or we told the developer to do, is submit a traffic study, because obviously traffic flow is going to change once you build 240 apartment units along with a development such as a Quick Trip. And as part of this traffic study, it became apparent that because of the added traffic movements from this development, that traffic signals were going to be warranted at the intersection of 14th and Georgia. I'm sorry, at South Business Drive in Georgia Avenue, and they're scheduled to be installed this late summer, this fall sometime. But also as part of this study, if you're familiar with this section of 14th Street between Broadway and Georgia, it exits very close to the South Business Drive Georgia intersection. It's just not safe. So as part of this study, we were told to look at eliminating the one-way street, putting a cul-de-sac at the north end of 14th Street by Georgia, and making it into a two-way street. So this goes back all back to 2019. And the reason we didn't switch it back in 2019, we want to make sure this project was going forward, which it is now, obviously. So that's why we're here, just to make it a two-way street. We sent letters out last winter. We never had a formal meeting, but I sent letters out, got tons of phone calls. People are aware of it. We plan on probably making this change, I'm guessing, next week. So later on this week, we'll put up a message board, and I'll do another letter drop so people are aware of it. The street's wide enough to support two-way traffic two-way street along with the parking on both sides, so there won't be any hardship of elimination of parking.
So has it been pretty positive feedback from the residents in that area?
Yeah,
Okay,
it
that's
has.
good.
Yeah, it has. And we did a similar thing back in the early 2000s for Colorado Court up in this area.
Yes.
That was also a one-way street. We cul-de-sac that off. So, yeah, it is. I think it's just going to stop all that
through traffic that, I should say unnecessary through traffic, because unless you live on that street, you're not gonna drive on it because you really can't get out, so.
Yeah.
It has been positive.
Okay, good to hear. Any other comments on it?
I make a motion to approve this.
Second, Warren.
Motion made by Marcus, seconded by Jim. Any other discussion on it?
I've got one question.
Go ahead.
What's the extra long part that doesn't seem like it's part of a normal cul-de-sac that extends to the north?
Let me look at that map. Oh, that's at the very end of Georgia Avenue, there's a business there.
Okay,
I think it's gonna have a storage business for a landscaping business, so we just gotta give them access. They have a super long driveway there.
so that'll be a driveway?
That'll be a driveway, yeah. It'll be actually kind of an extension of their driveway is what it's gonna be.
Thank you.
That's why it's like that.
Okay. Any other discussion on this?
Yes, just for my education, when there is a study done, what does that mean?
Pardon me?
When there is a study done, so there has been a study, right? So what does that entail?
Okay, what they look at is say, okay, this development is 240 apartment complex and Quick Trip. It's all fully built, and they have models. They have enough records to determine, okay, there's going to be X amount of cars during this time. It's a study. I guess it's a good guess on what they think the traffic flow is going to be through the course of a day.
Yeah, with a lot of like the developments, they'll have certain generators of traffic. So they're going to say Quick Trip's going to generate, 3,000 vehicles per day between this time and this time. And then the apartment complex will have a peak volume of exit based on the number of residents. And it's going to flow to, some's going to go to Georgian Avenue, some's going to go to Broadway, and they'll model it as City Engineer Ryan has said. And based on that model, they'll say, okay, with the traffic, there's going to be delay now at Georgia Avenue. And it's going to be dangerous without traffic signals for that delay, for those vehicles to cross. Therefore, traffic signals are necessary. And when we put in the traffic signals, to make the traffic signals work, the cul-de-sac needs to be put in so that certain turning movements, again, aren't being compromised and safety of traffic flow. So it's a lot of data that goes into these models. Very time-consuming, in the model, and the report can be, the summary is pretty simple, but the data and the model and all the traffic data is very, very complex. And we typically use traffic engineers. I think we used, it was a Taddy on this one, traffic analysis and design. They do, there's limited, what I would say, traffic engineering firms in the state. There's probably maybe 3 or 4 that we typically will use.
And they use data that's from decades and decades. It's not just data that they got last week. There's a lot of data, like David mentioned, and it's meant to really optimize the traffic flow. You don't want to create traffic jams and delays and this kind of stuff. And you do it for safety.
Ryan.
Thank you very much.
Ryan, just to add to that, the Oscar is obviously the largest development that the city and almost county is going to see, in estimates of $47 to $52 million. But aren't there going to be like 243 units in that development?
Yep. Yeah, 240 units.
Right, so if you look at 240 units, you're probably gonna have over 300 vehicles as an example.
Right.
And people coming and going, not including the Quick Trip and the possible expansion at a future time for a storage unit. So obviously they do have the models, but this is a very large area with a lot of additional roads and housing around it that they had to take into consideration.
And I would just add that I think that even in the past, before this development was here, that this was kind of a very tricky intersection to cross in the first place on George Avenue.
I can't remember when. David might remember, but there used to be traffic signals at South Business Drive in Georgia years ago, and they were taken down for various reasons.
It was back in the 80s, and when Broadway Avenue Viaduct was reconstructed, I think about in 88, 89-ish, the decision was to take the signals out at that time, because traffic flow was decreasing at that intersection. Partly because, if you recall, there used to be a restaurant, Terry's Diner.
Yeah.
There was a pretty good traffic, and there was a lot of people that used to frequent that. That was removed as part of that expansion project. I believe they bought it, and then some of the restaurant and that land was acquired as part of the reconstruction project. So that's when the traffic signals came out. But they it was at the time, well, what are we going to do? But traffic, it was settled down. But now we can foresee traffic will be much greater again. And with the curve in South Business Drive as well as the sight lines, it makes it very difficult to cross.
Yeah, I would say so. Any other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Right?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, that is approved. Okay, 3.3, General Ordinance 2-2122. Document 6.2, an ordinance creating parking limits so as to add a 2-hour parking limit, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., except Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays to the north side of Erie Avenue between North 8th Street and North 9th Street. Right?
Yeah, this is, the intersection we're talking about is like North 8th Street and Erie Avenue. It's the northwest corner, it's where Topper's Pizza is. There used to be a bus stop there, and several years ago, that bus stop was eliminated. So Topper's Pizza and several other businesses around, I was wondering if we could get, when you have a bus stop anywhere, you always mark it no parking because you don't want someone parking there, so when the bus shows up. So these businesses just asked to have that no parking taken down and just extend the 2-hour parking for their businesses, especially our restaurants such as Topper's. I'm sure there's a lot of turnover there. They're always looking for a close spot, so it made sense. I wasn't aware that the bus stop got eliminated, but that's fine. So we're just changing the 2-hour parking.
So you mind if I speak?
Go ahead.
So I like that idea, giving more freedom of people to park in our city. Aren't there metered parking spots in that area already? Shouldn't we be putting the meters in?
Not in this section of Erie Avenue. You're probably thinking of 8th Street. I said it's a corner of Erie and North 8th Street. This bus stop was on Erie Avenue. There is no meters there.
Not along, so this is where like by that barber shop, in between barber shop and Toppers?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on Erie Avenue on the north side of the road. It's not on 8th. 8th is metered very heavily, but not Erie.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Do
Make
we
a
have
motion to approve.
I've got a question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you. Is this going to present any problems with the farmer's market during the summer? Because I know there is some metered parking around there. And if this is not going to, 2-hour parking is not going to be in effect on Saturday when the farmer's market is there, is that going to create any problems with people kind of camping out there for the whole morning, or the vendors parking there and then not giving access to those businesses?
I guess I'm looking at it, it's going to add more parking for the farmer's market. It's going to add to it. Someone staying there longer term than 2 hours, they can on the weekends. I guess if it is an issue, we'll deal with it then. But no, I think it's going to be a positive for the farmer's market, just because it's just going to add more parking. Granted, it's only like maybe 4 or 5 spots, but it gets pretty crowded, so everything helps.
Well, my concern is I hope you do monitor it the first few weeks there, because if there's no meters there and there's no limit on how long you can park there, I just hope people don't take advantage of that, either the vendors parking there or people abusing it and just staying there for the entire morning. Thank you.
And I have a feeling some of the businesses around there, if it does become an issue, they'll be calling our office, and like I said, then we can deal with it at that time.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
second.
Okay, motion made by Jim, second by Marcus. Marcus, you have a comment?
Yes, I do. Does anyone from Public Works happen to know what the, on that sign, it looks like there's a 2-hour parking sticker on there. Do you know what it actually reads? For the people going to the west, or for parking to the west?
Oh, it's 2-hour parking. I think it's Monday through Friday, not Saturdays and Sundays.
So we're just looking to extend what's already there to
Exactly,
basically
yeah.
the corner, or as
Yep.
far as you can go?
Extending
Okay,
it,
thank you.
correct.
Any other discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye. That is approved. Okay, 3.4, Resolution 5-2122, Document 7.3, a resolution authorizing the appropriate city officials to enter into a contract with Parms Tree Service Incorporated for the removal of 676 tree stumps.
Mr. Chairman, Superintendent of Parks and Forestry, Joe Kerlin, will talk on this, as well as Tim Bull, our city forester, is here. I guess if Scott, you could put up the screen, at least for the laptop, share my screen. This just is a map of the stumps of the contract, as well as all the stumps in the city that need to be removed. And there's further clarification of what this contract will be performing, and maybe Tim and Joe could further expand upon this.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. I'll just run through the IFC, and then I'm going to get Tim up here to answer the questions. He's the man behind the scene with all the forestry. So we're just asking for approval to go into a contract with Parm Tree Service for the removal of 676 stumps. We have 2 capital accounts that we're using to do this. So our forestry management is set up in capital improvements. So at this time, Tim's going to cover this too, but we have over 1,060 some stumps out there. Stumps is just one of our things that we do for forestry management. Removals, before the ash borer even started, we were averaging right around 500 tree removals. And then with the management plan, we really had to bump that up to start getting rid of the ash. And as some of you will remember, that our goal was, with 5,000 ash trees out there, to treat half of them and remove half of them. And we are at that point now. I'm going to let Tim talk more about that. But that is a great huge first step since 2016. And we've always been able to handle forestry management for the most part within house. But within the last couple of years, we really had to start stepping outside, picking some contracting that we needed, either tree removals or stump removals. And this is just one of them, to get us caught up to where we need to be, where we can hopefully get back to that point where we can handle it ourselves. So we've made great strides. Tim and the tree crew, it's just, it's been great with our GIS. They've been able to, ask them a question, then they can tell you right now. Todd's seen it firsthand at a meeting where Tim just pulled it up right there. There was a question asked and could tell you everything about the tree the lady was asking about. So the management of our forestry, urban forestry, has been going real smooth the last few years. So we did have 4 bids. Wallace Tree Care, Parms Landscaping, Bruce the Stump Guy, Plymouth Landscape, and Tim's going to point out he put up 4 quadrants, and we bid those out separately, and Parms Landscape was the low bid on all 4 quadrants. So we're asking for the approval of $84,950 with Parm Landscape. Tim, you want to come up?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, the map, you can see the one on the right shows all of our stumps. The one on the left is the 4 quadrants that Parms is going to do for us, and hopefully with your approval. And they gave us a good price. It's very fair, in my opinion. And with those stumps done, those 676, that leaves us with about 400 currently. And our plan is to grind about 100 a month starting in May. And so by May, June, July, we'll have some more added by then. But by the end of summer, we should be, if Parms finishes up, we should be totally caught up on our stumps. And the reason we're so far behind was in 19, we stopped grinding stumps for the most part to get caught up on the ash removals that were standing dead. So now we're at a point where we want to get caught up with the stumps and stay caught up with the removals. And by allowing Parms to do this for us, that's gonna get us there. Any other questions?
I just have a quick comment on. I'm glad to see that this come forward. I know that you guys have done a great job as far as removing the trees, and removing the trees is top priority, because a stump's not going to fall on a car. So I mean, to get the trees down was the main thing, and I think that the way you guys have handled this, I commend you on it. I think this is the way to go, and I'm happy to see this. Go ahead, Marcus.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second, Warren.
Motion's made by Marcus, seconded by Jim. Any other discussion?
I was
I
just,
have a question. I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. I think Razia.
I was just wondering, so is it possible to replant in the same spot where the stump is removed?
To replant, yeah, many times we're planting trees in the same exact spot. That's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Jim, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if I could lobby to have that quadrant done that was done in pink there. That would be closest to my District 10.
I prefer the green first.
Let's flip a coin.
Let's leave this one alone.
Yeah. Any other discussion without lobbying? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye. That is approved.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys. Okay. 3.5, Resolution 6-2122, Document 7.4, a resolution authorizing the appropriate city officials to enter into a contract with Enterprise FM Trust and Enterprise Fleet Management Incorporated for the lease of vehicles, the disposal of vehicles, and the maintenance of vehicles, and the authorizing the city administrator to administer the lease program to the extent funds are appropriated. Is this yours, Todd, or is this?
Actually, David will
David,
start.
David starts out,
Wait,
okay.
I can start out, Mr. Chairman, and then
Okay.
I'll defer to City Administrator Wolf here in a bit. But this is, as you probably are familiar with, this was presented in detail in terms of the program leasing of our vehicles for DPW, especially what we call as our light duty or small, mainly pickup trucks, vehicles up to 1 ton. So that's roughly between 50 and 60 vehicles of the fleet, large portion of our fleet. And quite frankly, not a portion of the fleet that got a lot of love or a lot of priority in the past because of other priorities with the heavy equipment that we need, and the heavy equipment is the much larger, more costly. So with City Administrator Wolf and the staff, we reviewed some of the proposals, and he brought this to our attention with the Finance Department in terms of the opportunity to lease. And quite frankly, we're very excited about the program because it will upgrade a significant portion of our fleet that is, again, as I mentioned, not an area that we typically upgrade due to priorities, as well as this will provide better fuel efficiency as well as significant cost savings. And we're excited about the project. It was also, this portion of this lease program also affects the capital moving forward. So when we talk about the capital tonight, the capital's built in that this lease is going to be going. So just wanted to let you get that thought in your mind. So with that, if City Administrator Wolf would like to add to the discussion, that'd be great.
Thank you, Director Biebel. Yeah, I'm very excited about this. We've been talking about this for quite a while. This is an integral part to the continued growth and success of the city. If we all remember, as part of the state of the city, our number 2 area of concern was our fleet, our city fleet, and this takes care of that, so that it also allows us to free up some of our general obligation borrowing that continue to happen year over year, because for those of you that remember, on a regular basis, we were replacing some of these pieces with general obligation debt, which means that we had 10-year loans that we were basically financing vehicles for. So I did want to point out the number 1 issue that's going to supersede all of this is that the vehicles are going to be safer. So we talk about cost, we talk about repairs, repair costs, things like that, but all of these vehicles will be new. So it's also going to look better for our constituents, because we're not going to be driving around in 15 and 20-year-old pieces of city utility vehicles. We're actually going to have new equipment on a regular basis. And this should be a self-supporting process and program. And it's going to be very exciting for us to do this. And it's already been taken into consideration with our capital improvements program that you guys are going to look at in just a few minutes. So thank you.
Director, I'm sorry, Administrator Wolf, could you just kind of go over, you guys did go through this with some other cities, as I recall from the last, and just
Yes,
kind of go over
yes.
that, you know, compare how they're,
Actually, all of the other municipalities that are doing this, and it's also done in the private sector also. What happens is vehicles are replaced on a 2 to 5 year program, depending on market, depending on usage, depending on demand. And what will happen is the enterprise group will actually work with our I believe it's Rick Nye, he'll work with them directly. And it's really a hands-off operation for us. We've outlined the vehicles, and it's 1 ton or less. And we're gonna start with Public Works first, and then we're going to look at expanding that into other departments at a later date. So the goal is to have newer vehicles on a regular basis. They'll be outfitted, and the only thing that we will really have to do is oil changes and tire rotations. And we'll also be able to outsource that if needed at a reduced rate.
The real beauty of the program is the quick turnaround, because we're able to use our government purchasing power along with the enterprise group. When we acquire vehicles, we acquire them at much less value than what the general public is because of a governmental agency and our pricing through state contracts. But by quickly turning the vehicles over and reselling them, we actually should make money towards the value of our program and build value and equity to help fund this on an ongoing basis versus going out into the market and borrowing funds to acquire vehicles. And you could always say, well, why aren't you doing that today? Well, we just, the logistics behind it and the management of that type of program, working with a vendor that is in that program and in that resale market, in the rental business and leasing business, it takes a tremendous amount of burden off of our shoulders, as well as upgrades our fleet. So again, excited about the program. And all the work, again, with our Assistant City Attorney, Thomas, working through all the agreements and making sure that the city is protected through this. We're excited to get going, and timing is of the essence, because we're placing orders right now because the 2022 models are coming online. And that's what we're looking to get in and get our order in early so that by late fall, early winter, we'll have our fleet coming in.
any questions from anyone here?
I've got a few questions.
Go ahead.
So I have been poking at the maintenance agreement, and Administrator Wolf had mentioned that the oil changes are our responsibility, but it looks like they're supposed to be covered in the maintenance agreement. If I could get a little bit more understanding of that, and there's a lot of fine print here, so I'm going to default to the lawyer in the room to tell me, is this a good deal?
And Thomas did a fantastic job arm wrestling with Enterprise. So if you can imagine, Enterprise is a very large company, but Thomas did a great job putting them in check and holding them in the corner.
Thanks.
There is a lot of fine print. So there's a maintenance agreement. Under that maintenance agreement, oil changes would be included. There isn't the requirement that we enter into a maintenance agreement with every vehicle. So that's an option, and based on cost, that may or may not make sense for any given vehicle. Mm-hmm. So in terms of whether that will make sense is truly going to be that case-by-case basis.
Gotcha. Thank you. Is it a good deal?
I think it was Administrator Wolf who pointed out that everyone who seems to have done this has really positive things to say. It's weird to get 100% of the people you talk to say nice things about almost anyone. So I think that gives a lot of comfort, and the cash flow projections I think, sort of speak for themselves directionally, not a legal answer so much as.
Well, thank you. And then I have
Thomas.
one follow-up for the Public Works staff. So if we are truly not taking care of the vehicles we have now that are under a ton, what's the operational thing going to look like when we have to, do we have to take the vehicles to a place? Does somebody come and pick up the cars for their oil changes and other stuff? How is that going to work?
Well, we actually do take great care of our vehicles, and it is a burden because we have, the average age of our fleet is 12-plus years old. We have some trucks 20 years old for pickup trucks. So we're doing the maintenance on them. This will actually alleviate some of it in terms of some of that ongoing preventative maintenance where we'll contract some of that out. Yes, there is a little logistical maneuvering, but we have picked a vendor that's relatively close to our shop. So we don't think there should be a lot of time and delay in terms of that transfer back and forth. And again, it's on we're going to analyze the fleet and look at those vehicles that are used frequently, that will be on that aggressive maintenance schedule, and others that, quite frankly, there are seasonal aspects to some of our trucks. And those might not get as much, let's say they're not going to be maintained on a quarterly basis, it might be on a semi-annual basis.
A good example is when you have older equipment, the older equipment tends to need not an oil change, but a lot more of other things that are timely and more, take more time, take more cost. And this program is going to help alleviate some of that burden of the old equipment by, because we'll never have it long enough to have to worry about it. And we'll have warranties on all of our new vehicles. So if something does go sideways, it's somebody else's problem.
Understood. I guess my question was too vague. Are we going to send a dude to a dealership, or is somebody going to come and pick up the car?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll actually drive the vehicle to a vendor that will do the oil changes and maintenance for us. And then when it's done, either it will be dropped off or we'll have to send someone to pick it up.
Thank you.
I have one question.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, hold on one second. Grazia has one first, and then you'll be second.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Are we going to save money versus the previous?
Yes.
Thank you.
Jim, go ahead.
David, have you heard anything about availability of vehicles? I went by a local car dealership. I go by it quite often. I won't mention the name, but their inventory of new vehicles is probably 50% or less than what it usually is. Is Enterprise going to have any difficulty providing with the vehicles that we need because of the, I guess, what is it? They can't get the circuit boards or something that they put into these new cars or the computer chips. Is that filtering down into the truck world?
Very much so. And that is one of the concerns of the timeliness of this, so they can place their order for the next year's models and get early into that queue for deliveries. So, but it's industry-wide, and yes, the pickup truck and that type of market is affected with I guess it's the chips that they're having difficulty acquiring to put into the vehicles.
So if that would be the case in availability, then David, we would just continue try to make do with what we have, and then as they come in, we're gradually getting into the new program.
That's correct. Yes, we're going to continue to operate as we have today, and continue to maintain the fleet, and just be patient. It happens, quite frankly, when we buy some of our larger dump trucks, our triaxles. There's sometimes anywhere from a 9-month to a 12-month lead time on some of the equipment nowadays, and we just build that into our forecasting and plan accordingly.
If you're ready for a motion, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion's made by Jim, seconded by Marcus. Any other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. That is approved. 3.6, capital improvement project, discussion only.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to try to give a high-level overview. Tonight's only discussion. The capital improvements has been already submitted and approved through the Capital Improvements Commission. But it's a good opportunity for us to just give you a forecast. And many of these projects, for those that have been on the committee in the past, have heard these. Grazia, you being on Capital Improvements Commission has also helped that now you get to hear some of this again and give you another refresher. But I'm just really going to focus on the 2022 projects, next year's projects. Even though it's a 5-year plan, I'm not going to take all night and, quite frankly, all of your time to go through everything. And if you have any questions or anything, please reach out to us and we can get you more detail. But I'm going to start with the streets program. And I think many of you must have seen this map that I've presented in the past. It's a city map of all of our past projects, which are the solid lines on the map. And the dashed lines are the future projects. Next year, the big project for street improvement is North Avenue. And that is from Calumet Drive all the way to Taylor Drive. It's a divided boulevard section road, so it's double the amount of pavement that we would normally do on many of our streets. So that's a $1.2 million project in and of itself. The other one, we have some concrete work that we're continuing to do on panel replacements and replacing concrete panels and squares, mainly on Calumet Drive, South Business Drive, those areas that are our main arterial that is concrete. It's in good condition, but there are panels that are cracked or starting to have delaminations in them and potholes that need to be patched. So we systematically go and we'll cut those out and replace it with new concrete. Next year, we have $500,000. That's going to happen this year on a section. Again, next year in 2022, we're going to just leapfrog and go down the road. So that will be a program that you'll see in the next couple of years. As well as North 10th Street. This is by North High School. If anybody has gone by the cemetery or North High, there's very, very bad pavement panels that are just beyond resurfacing. We've attempted to resurface it over the years. There's so much movement, poor soils, and the asphalt peels away. So we're looking to do that next year as well. In addition to that, the other big project would be St. Clair Avenue. It's a neighborhood revitalization project between North 9th Street and North 14th Street. So those are the street projects for 2022. I'm going to go right into parks and forestry, and really the big item there is our urban forestry management. You just heard from our city forester and superintendent of parks and forestry tonight. That's an ongoing battle with our community, with the emerald ash borer and our urban forest. But the good thing is that we're starting to transition from removals to planting. And our city forester this year, we're putting in an actual gravel bed for new trees to start being able to plant more trees, get them young, get them bare root, take care of them, get it going, and then we're able to plant, and they have a much higher survival rate and growth potential. And it's an exciting proposition. We're working on that and we're utilizing, actually, quite frankly, part of the old police impound that was behind our service building, which is now located. We were able to work with the police department, move their impound area out from the service building over to the police station. And now we have this area that we're able to put some trees in and help and really expedite the planting process. So that's an exciting venture. The other thing you'll see in 2022, a big improvement will be Area Evergreen 5. And this is in coordination with the anticipated new bridge that we're going to be putting in. We received some funding from the DNR NARDA program, Natural Resource Damage Assessment Fund. And with that, we're going to be doing some pavement and enhancements and access to the bridge, as well as some shelter upgrades, and that's what that program is. In addition, you see we alternate between parks and buildings and grounds. Our ADA, Handicap Accessibility Program, that's an annual $250,000 allotment. The grand total of that whole program is roughly right around $2 million citywide. That would be any city building or anything where there's public access, as well as park shelters and so forth. So that's an ongoing program in our parks. I'm going to transition now to our city buildings for 2022. And we're doing a generator. The generator at the building is original to the building, so it's over 50-plus years old. We're not able to really get parts, and the generator's inside the building. So with this, we're going to remove that, move it to the outside of the building. But as part of that project, we need to upgrade also the electrical panel that generator will feed. The upgraded generator will require significantly upgraded electronics along with it. So what you see is that is being part of that project, that $195,000. In addition, next year we're looking to do our vehicle wash. We have it's the original vehicle wash bay, and the vehicle wash bay is quite narrow. From the trucks, again, 50 years ago, weren't nearly the size of the trucks that we have today at the facility. So what we're looking to do is there's a wall that we can remove and move over roughly around, I'd say, 8 to 12 feet to a post and beam. That it is really a perfect spot to just widen this. But when we widen it, we're also going to build a stairwell and what I would say a catwalk for employees to safely get on top of the vehicles and be able to spray down and instead of lifting up the box inside the building and not being very effective at cleaning the inside of our vehicles, especially from the salting operations. So those are the two big building projects. The next thing I'm going to go into is traffic control or street lighting. This is an ongoing annual program where we attempt to upgrade our existing city street lights from what I would say the orange metal, the orange high pressure sodium, and then we have some white lights that are metal halide. This is going to the LED type of light, much brighter and whiter light that is much more energy efficient. So we've been systematically upgrading our lighting fixtures throughout the city. You'll see there's some within what's called a TID district. That's a defined city area of blocks where there's been development, and that development has created enough extra revenue for this infrastructure. The other aspect of it is just citywide. It'd be outside of the district, and it's just areas of the city that need upgrading. Again, that's been an ongoing program for the last 3 years, and we're looking to go for probably another 3 into the future. Next, I'm going to go to the motor vehicle fund, and really, it's really scaled back because of now, we're moving forward with the leasing program and pickup trucks. For 2022, we're only really purchasing 2 pieces of equipment. One's a street sweeper for $295,000, excuse me. I wish it was $195,000.
I can make that happen.
And a skid steer. A brand name would be a Bobcat. So that's what we're looking to get, those 2 items. So, and then I'm moving to, I gotta find my sheet, wastewater, right? I think that's the last. And the big item in wastewater is really this project, and if I could have this go up on the screen. This is the South Side Interceptor pipeline. Roughly runs from north of King Park all the way along the South Lake Shore to the wastewater treatment plant. It's roughly almost 2 miles in length, and it's a 60-inch sewer that handles basically half of the sewage flow to the plant approximately. And it also picks up some sewage from the town of Sheboygan as well through this line. As you can see in the little photographs down in the lower right corner, the manhole structures and the revetment and the armament of stone and concrete that was in place was severely compromised, especially with the high water and wave action that we've been experiencing the last couple of years. We're fortunate this year, water's receded somewhat. It's still at a high level though. It's not receded down to where it really would be what I would say normal water level. Nevertheless, this project will be looking to, especially along the red line, is going to be establishing a protective barrier of stone and revetment that will also provide an access road to maintain this line. If we actually had something catastrophic, it would have taken us several days to get to this because of the severe erosion that has occurred and limited access. So what this will provide is we'll provide a road for access as well as maintaining, as well as upgrading and strengthening this system. It's in good condition. It was built in the 1930s, 1936. And it's in, quite frankly, amazing condition. And we took core samples of the concrete. It has very, very good section left in the pipe, so it's very structurally sound, and it's performing at a high level today. So what we're going to do is, when we do this work, we're also going to clean it, however. It has sand buildup, and it has some, with the buildup, it loses some capacity, but by cleaning it and getting this access, moving forward, we'll be in a much better position to respond to any emergencies, as well as to maintain it when it would ever need to be rehabilitated. We'd have the ability to get in there and insert a liner and do a cured in place pipe at that point in the future. That's $8 million roughly. Fortunately, we've applied for some grants with some of the stimulus money potentially, as well as the recovery money from the COVID relief bill. This activity is eligible, so ideally, this won't have to be borrowed funds or go onto the ratepayers for the wastewater treatment or sewage bill, in other words. So we're working through that, but as a project, we still want to make you aware of it. And when we get a little bit further detail down the road, we will come back to the council and let you know when we're going out for bids and where the funding sources will be ultimately from. Other than that, most of the other projects are at the plant proper. There's some clarifiers I talked about. There's just annual rehab at the plant of some of that. And every year, we have about $1 million that we put in, and that just goes into actual infrastructure throughout the city. And quite frankly, a lot of it ties in with our streets. So wherever we're doing a street repair, we also will look at what's underneath the street, and we'll add and do the repair to the sewer lines as well. We don't want to repair a street and have the infrastructure underneath fail and have to, unfortunately, we'd have to go through a new street and fix the infrastructure. That's not always a good thing. A good use of taxpayer dollars are public interest as well. So I know that was a high-level, quick overview, but again, we're here to answer questions, and by all means, take some of this and feel free to reach out to my office or any of our staff, and we'll provide more details of projects. And again, this is a plan. These projects always come back through this committee before we go out for construction or work on them, so we can provide much more detail at that stage as well.
Okay. Thank you, Director Buell. Administrator Wolf.
Thank you, Dean. I just want to compliment the Public Works team. This capital improvements program was quite a bit different than what has been done in the past. And they came forward and they reviewed the projects. And we look at the strategic planning process versus what we've done in the past years. So I also want to put a little bit of a plug in there that there's an EAM program that we've been talking about with council members, and it's been brought up in other meetings. This is something that's going to help us with projects like this. It's going to help us to prioritize and plan for years in the future. So they did a great job. When Director Biebel was referencing some of the grants and upcoming funding, there's the American Rescue Plan, where they call out that the only infrastructure that money can be used for is wastewater, water, and broadband. So with wastewater and water projects, upwards of $50 million coming up in the next couple of years, we are definitely going to be looking to put some money towards these projects to reduce the borrowing that the community is going to have to endure and the additional increase in water and sewer costs potential. So again, great job, everybody, and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for the director or administrator?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the administrator and then also possibly David. Todd, yesterday it was announced, came down the pike of all the various millions of dollars that communities are going to be receiving from the federal government, and Sheboygan's share of that is going to be $22 million. And I believe it has to be spent by the end of 2024. Are these the dollars that you were just referencing before, or are these any dollars that may filter down into the world of public works and the water utility and our wastewater treatment plant?
Thank you, Alderborn. These are the American Rescue Plan dollars. The city of Sheboygan, because of the position that we're in, we are actually getting 22.8 million. It'll be 11.4 in each trek. So we will be getting 11.4 this year and then 11.4 next year. That money is actually coming theoretically this May already. So we are scrambling to make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's. As you had stated, the Treasury Department did come out with a release on information yesterday, and we were having multiple meetings today with the League of Municipalities, and tomorrow we'll be having another overview of the guidelines. And again, as the government, state and federal, as we all know, clarity is not something that is very well defined. So we're still working through what we can and cannot do. But as I had stated before, the number one thing that was called out as far as infrastructure, the only thing that as far as infrastructure that the monies can be used for is wastewater, water, and broadband. Broadband is a big issue. The county is receiving 23 million, and they'll be focusing on broadband in some respect. We're also going to be putting the monies towards social development as far as business relief and constituent relief at the lower economy levels. But we also have to remember that we don't want to have start programs that the state is going to be rolling out also. So the state of Wisconsin is planning on rolling out millions of dollars into municipalities, and we don't want to be having the same programs. The other thing that I do want to point out is that there's still in process a potential infrastructure relief bill, and that will actually be something that we can seriously focus on projects that are in process, that are shovel ready, like our water and sewer, but also potentially roads and bridges. Thank you.
Just to follow up, I read the release yesterday from the League of Municipalities, and it looks like one of the flies in the ointment with this money, or being able to spend it, is Sheboygan and the other cities being able to stay within the expenditure restraint program. Is that still forthcoming on what the regulations are going to be with that, Todd?
Thank you, Born. That is one of the topics that I actually brought up in the very beginning with the league, was how was this money going to affect our levy limits and our expenditure restraint. As everybody should know, the city of Sheboygan has participated in the expenditure restraint, which allows us to bring additional revenue in, but it also caps us in what we can do. Our levy limits were reduced, as we all should understand, last year, we could have increased our levy by 26 cents. We went up only 15 cents from a tax-based perspective. The reason we were able to control our costing is in 2020, we reduced our spending because of COVID, and our expenditures were reduced because of COVID. If the American Rescue Plan does allow us to compensate for 2020, 2021, and so forth, for the loss in revenues that the community has had. The problem is that we've already adjusted our budgets for those losses, and if we are to pay ourselves back, then we have to compensate our levy limits and our expenditure restraint, which will throw us off. It won't throw us off, obviously, in 2020. It won't throw us off in 2021, but we will have to make adjustments in 22 and 23. So basically, long story short, if you don't need it, don't take it. My opinion. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? All righty, then that's the end of that then. Next regular meeting date is May 25th, 2021. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made by Marcus, seconded by Jim to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.